Broadcasting live from our studio in Boston, Solutions Review is proud to showcase Semarchy in the Solution Spotlight, a unique online event for industry professionals.
I'm Doug Atkinson here at Solutions Review, and welcome to the Solution Spotlight featuring Semarchy and a customer success story on Sanofi's master data management journey. With a team of over 100,000 employees across 170 countries, 70 manufacturing sites, and 20 R&D sites, Sanofi is a global organization with a multitude of disparate systems and a compelling solution story. So today, we have something a little different in our spotlight, a presentation that we want to share with Sanofi's Head of Customer Master Data Management, Danny Aranja, who will describe their journey to achieving a Customer 360 solution through MDM and data engineering. This is a very strong event with lots of learning, as well as a demonstration of Sanofi's unified data platform. So now I'll turn it over to Robin Peel, Data Management Maestro at Semarchy.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. This is Robin Peel with Semarchy here, and we're here today with a great look at and review of how one of our Semarchy XDM customers deployed a rapidly evolving global Customer 360 solution. So, and this involves Sanofi, one of our longer-term customers. So let me do some introductions first. Today, our primary speaker from Sanofi is going to be Danny Aranja, Head of Customer MDM at Sanofi. I think we've all heard of Sanofi. There's a description of the company up there, but let me just give a quick introduction to Danny. He's got a long experience, 18 years or more experience in data management, data warehousing, and BI. He's got a proven track record of success in leading data warehouse, BI, and MDM implementations for clients globally. And his expertise spans M&A, data integration, financial consolidation, global budgeting and forecasting, and marketing science data, longitudinal data, and medical scientific data from discovery and the development stages of the drug lifecycle. So it's been a pleasure working with Danny, both long-term helping Sanofi be successful at XDM and getting ready for today. As a real quick introduction for me, my name is Robin Peel. I've been with Semarchy for some time. I'm on the client success team. Data Management Maestro is my rather strange title. And I've been in this space for a very, very long time, both with the British railway industry as a vendor and using MDM and data management platforms and so on. So it's my pleasure to kind of lead this session along with Danny actually today. So welcome, Danny.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. So the first thing we want to do today, we've seen a agenda on the left there. We've done the introductions, right? Just have a real quick poll first. And the most important thing, speaking of in healthcare and life sciences, and a question for Danny is, from Danny is, I'll let you introduce it, Danny. Go ahead.
Yeah, I understand the audience is a mix of people from pharmaceutical and non. So just curious to know what you folks think. Who do you think are our customers, right? Who are the folks that we target? So a quick poll, if you can go into the webinar poll there and give your answers. Let's see what the output is.
In a few moments, when we get the results back, we will introduce what you guys actually think about that. So let's get started into this. Wrong screen. There we go. Getting started into this life science industry, who are the stakeholders? What is the value chain there, and the data needs, as you've seen it in your journey with Sanofi?
So I would answer it in four different bullets, right? The complexity of the pharma industry. The pharmaceutical industry has a very complex data landscape. Okay, most pharmas are organized by divisions like research and development, medical, commercial, manufacturing, just like any other turnkey industry that provides soup to nut products, right? But diversified pharmas like Sanofi also have different businesses. We are into vaccines, we are into general medicine, which is your the diabetes or cardiovascular type of therapeutic areas that you're familiar with. We're also into specialty care, that is rare diseases where you have a patient count of maybe just 100 or a few thousand, but hey, they still need to be taken care of. We're also into the consumer health division. And each of these businesses can have their own business model. So the meaning of a customer can really vary based on which business you operate in, right? So we're in one of those industries, one of those rare industries where actually the consumer of our product is not the person you actually sell to or even influence. So to answer the question, I don't know what the poll's going to say, but the folks we really consider customers across these businesses are really the HCPs, that stands for healthcare professionals and healthcare organizations, okay, in the countries that we operate in. So I just answered that question from the poll. I don't know if you have the results out. Is there a way we can pause and take a
Actually,
look?
I do have the results here, Danny. So it's interesting. 61% said healthcare providers. 17% of who wrote a small number said healthcare organizations, HCOs, and 22% said patients.
Interesting.
So yeah,
and it could be patients too. For example, in the specialty care where the patient count is small, we do engage patients directly, but it's not in a way to influence or sell, but patient engagement to ensure they are following through on their medications and those kind of engagements. That was about the complexity of the pharma industry. Another aspect to some of the aspects we see in the life science industry is the data management maturity, I would call it, right? So we're talking about a global MDM. So on a global scene, I would say there's a wide spectrum of complexity in the pharma commercial landscape across these different countries. For example, on one end, you have the US, which has an extremely complex landscape, quite mature processes and good, clear policies. So just to clarify, the US, because of the complexity involved, is not part of our global MDM. All right, they have their own dedicated space on a global in their own MDM, where they kind of knock themselves out. But whatever we are talking about here is really ex-US. Okay, the US, for example, is what we call as a multi-payer environment, where you have not just the government, you have their Medicare and Medicaid, along with competing with the insurance companies. It really is a multi-layer business model with a multitude of plans from these insurance companies, payers, PBMs, which are all really customers. Okay, so hence that really does not conform to the global model that we push. So hence they're separate. But coming back to the markets that we have, so you have certain extremely mature markets, and then on the other end of the spectrum you have emerging markets where there are not much of regulations and a very simpler model, and then somewhere in the middle you also have single payer markets like North Europe and the UK, where they have their own challenges. Even though they're single payer, you have data privacy and additional challenges when it comes to them. We also have regulations, right? So like, unlike other verticals, the pharma industry is very regulated when it comes to your sales, what you can sell. Many countries have regulations on who we can provide drugs to. You just can't drop off drugs to anybody. So there's a process to follow. What sales product related information that you can share, what materials can you drop off, right? And what topics that can be discussed with some of these, with our HCPs. So that's a regulated space. The last aspect of your question, I think, was the data needs. Again, our goal is to provide a 360 view of our engagement with a particular customer. So when you say 360, it means how are we interacting with this person in person with our reps, or digital engagements in ways of campaigns, how they interact with our systems. But the key thing, what most of our consumers really need are CRMs and other systems that consume from us. They need accurate information on calling addresses, the specialties, the qualifications of these HCPs. We also have medical teams that need to know about key influencers in the markets. Which of these HCPs, which of these doctors really are key influencers? We call it KOL, key opinion leader. So there's data sources for that. The newer trend is to find out the social media presence of these HCPs, right? How many followers do they have on Twitter? How many followers do they have on Facebook? And we call that a digital opinion leader. So that's an emerging trend that's coming on. So these are some of the data needs that are common in our in our industry.
Cool. Thanks, Danny. I think that's a pretty good overview as to the complexity that we see in healthcare. And Semarchy has multiple healthcare, pharmaceutical, life sciences organizations. We see similar challenges in them, but Sanofi is really interesting how you've got these multiple domains around the world and how you treat them both sometimes similarly and sometimes very differently. Mm-hmm. So next, I would like to ask you why Semarchy? Right, it's a very existential question, really. But what were the business challenges that led Sanofi to an MDM solution leveraging Semarchy XDM?
Right. Yep, that's a very interesting question, and I'd like to walk you through some of our journey with Semarchy here, some background on how we got here and the route we took. So our goal, sometime in 2017, we were looking out to enhance our MDM capabilities or roll out MDM capabilities to the global markets, ex-US, many of them established markets, which had a huge unmet business need. The US already had a sophisticated platform, which is very expensive to build and to run. So we were on the lookout for something that was, a lot simpler, because some of the business needs were not as complex as the US. So we were out in the market looking for a tool that had a simple architecture. So when you say why Semarchy, I remember being in the selection panel when we were evaluating some of these vendors back in 2017, and the Semarchy architecture, hey, even I could understand it, right? So it was simple and realized.
Well, I can too, so I think we're both in that together.
Absolutely. So to me, that looked like something that would work, and it was cost effective, right? The pricing model was interesting. It was based on gold copies, whereas some of the competing products had based on source data, and to need a PhD in math to kind of figure out how much it's going to cost your bottom line. So yeah, that was what was appealing about Semarchy. And what also helped was we are a French company. Semarchy was a French company then. They had a huge presence. The product team was in Lyon. That's where we have a huge presence. So we had multiple interactions, and they were very keen to come on site and work with us. So I think that's why our initial relationship for Semarchy started off with those interactions in Lyon.
Thanks. Sorry, I'm ahead of myself there. Go ahead.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you. Actually, that slide that you pulled up is useful to explain what happened next. So that really talks about how we started our journey in 2017. And as you can see on that slide, we initially had an initial contract signed with Semarchy in 2017. 2018, we went live with the first market. I believe it was France, where we had about 1.7 million customers. On the right side, we've put together a graph that shows the markets onboarded and the number of gold copies along our journey, right? So it goes from 2018 to 2023 there on what's really the x-axis, but it's vertical here. So so 2018, we started with one market. 2019, I believe there were two other countries that came on board, probably UK, a lot of the European markets, established markets there. 2020, we had 5, I believe, the German-speaking countries, Germany, Switzerland, Austria. So that took the gold copy count to about 6.5 million. 2021 is when we embarked on a real a major initiative to roll out one CRM to the whole world, right? We wanted to get our CRMs, retire some of the legacy ones, and get them on a single platform. And hence we started on this one CRM initiative. And this one initiative really was not just a CRM, but it was a suite of products. It was really the CRM solution. It had a BI solution for reporting, and a digital marketing platform, and MDM, of course, governed by a central PMO. So the key responsibility of MDM here was to be the sole data provider or customer data provider to all the other suites of products. And as you might be aware, CRM has very critical needs for customer data. It's a basic need. And in today's world, it's a sea change from what used to happen previously, right? Most of us coming from data warehousing and BI platforms in the early 2000s, we're so used to assuming MDM being an analytical tool, part of the BI or reporting tool set. However, there's been a huge paradigm shift in the last few years where even transactional systems like CRM now need a customer 360 view. So all that integration that the CRM and MDM does, even CRM users need to say it. They're no longer just getting access to customer contact information, but they really want to see how exactly the customers are engaging with. So we are right now, we put ourselves in the critical path. It's no longer an analytical system, an afterthought. We are in the critical path of information delivery to transactional systems. And CRM doesn't want to be in the business of customer data management, matching data from different, fortunately in most markets, for customer contact data in the pharma world, there are syndicated data providers. Okay, there's two camps, and we're with one of them. There's also syndicated data providers to provide KOL data, the key opinion leader, the digital opinion leader, and the CRM systems do not want to be in the business of matching and merging. They just want a system, MDM, to provide them that unified view of the customer base. Right. So these are some of the data needs, I would say, that are required in our ecosystem.
Thanks, Danny. And I know when I compare to any systems rollout, see this very steady cadence and development over time. Here, it's very steady and consistent to spread the scope of the system. That's actually really great to see. But my natural next question is, how did you do that, right? What was your approach to make this global rollout in that steady cadence by market, 1 or 2 a year and now accelerating? What was your approach to actually make that work across 30 countries and maybe up to 50 this year? And what strategies help you achieve that?
That's right. So yeah, we had a phased approach. The way we got to our getting to 50 is, I think we did 18 in the first year, 16 in the second year, and another 16 this year. So it was in waves. But to answer your question, I would break it down into, I would say, two different aspects, right? There is the business aspects that need to be addressed, and there's the technical or the architecture aspects. I would break it up into these two. So the first one on the business side, I would say harmonization of business processes. As in any global digital transformation program, you should always be preceded by standardization or harmonization of the business process. Only then can you successfully roll out a IT initiative. This standardization in terms of MDM can be, the acceptance of, global data sources, which entails market switching. And when I use the term markets, folks, in the pharma world, when you say markets, is really the countries. There's our sales market, so that's a term that we use interchangeably with countries. So this entails market switching from their local sources to a global one. Very often there's some reluctance in this cutover, but it comes with a cost saving to them, right? One of the benefits that these markets saw in switching over to a global source is this is now funded by a global budget. It no longer comes from your local budget. So that was one incentive. Another one is, I would say, on the business side, is alignment of business rules or governance. And governance is a key aspect here. Since the global MDM relies on global sources of data, the governance is also set up at a global level. So that expectation setting with the markets is key, especially when it comes to MASH rules or survivorship in MDM. We need to align, ensure that the markets are aligned with that. There's also other things like survivorship rules and UI screens. We do not customize any of these, so it's a standard offering that goes out to the markets. But to get to this alignment, we stood up a global governance body, right? This is a body that meets very frequently to address some of these market requests, especially if there's a non-core, a custom requirement. This particular body, which is a set of people from the business, from the various divisions and IT, look at some of these requirements coming and say how exactly do they fit into the core model, or are they custom? We typically make exceptions for customization if that requirement is mandated for regulatory or compliance needs, in which case an exception is made. So that having that global governance body is key. The way we had organized teams, we work in the agile framework, so the teams were empowered with DevOps kind of environments with CI/CD pipelines, the autonomy to build and deploy independently. We also had global teams, which means we had people all over the world in our team, closer to where the markets are, so some of the cultural differences or time zone issues were addressed. The last one is the most important one, what we in Sanofi call as the core model approach. I think we'll go into that in a future slide. Some more information on that in the next few slides.
Thanks, Danny. No, that's good to understand how this approach was actually structured. And from me, as someone who helps our existing clients be successful with Semarchy XDM, adopting that agile framework and being responsive is one of the most important things. That's, I sound like a sales guy right now. I apologize for that. But it's exactly how XDM is intended to be configured in an agile, iterative approach. It's really great to actually hear you say that. Thank you. But yeah, the obvious next question is, you mentioned this core model architecture, which I've seen you actually be very successful with. I would like you to actually explain what factors in your systems architecture help you determine that this core model scope and implementation strategy was the right way to actually go for a minimal viable product. And as always, was there resistance to this approach, and how did you deal with that?
Yes, so I wish I could answer the last question first when it comes to resistance, but yeah, I'll go in the order that you phrased it. So how exactly did we come up with the core model approach? So having deployed MDM solutions for some of the established markets in 2017, 2018, 2019, the 3 years we did some of those established markets, where we stood up dedicated MDMs for these markets, right? They each received their own MDM solution, or standalone MDM solution. Having done this in 3-4 markets, we kind of knew what the requirement was. We knew what good looked like. We realized that the underlying data and the processes are really similar in nature. So when 2021 came in and we started on this global rollouts, we already had developed what was a core model, which we then successfully put to use to the additional markets, because most of the business needs were already addressed by the data model and the MDM models that we had already rolled out. So there were some guiding principles for the core model. The first one is that ratio of adopting to the standards versus customizations, which is 95-5, right? So we do allow a 5% variance from the core model for the compliance needs once that justification has been made. Okay, otherwise most markets have to stick to the core model. We also had what we call an MVP approach, the minimally viable product. So we start, instead of building something that's heavy and then we're trying to carry it around the world, we built something that was the basic requirement, which was data from these global validators, okay, which is what CRM needs immediately to go live. So that was the first offering, and it's a misnomer, a single-sourced MDM, but yes, we were a laughing stock for a few months. We then onboarded additional sources with additional matching in a phased manner, right? So that minimally viable MVP approach to me was something that really helped us succeed. The next guiding principle was to keep our models scalable, which means as we are rolling out to newer markets, there should be minimal change to the data model. The data model should be built that, hey, if you're taking in newer elements, newer national IDs or identifiers or addresses, the core model shouldn't be changed. It should be scalable, which greatly helped with when we were building our match rules. Okay, because when we are building match rules, and again, the match rules here are fairly simplistic. We have match rules on identifiers or names and address match, right? So when we are building match rules, we have the geography entity in different countries can vary. For example, you in the UK, there's the concept of a county. There's no states. I don't believe you have regions. It's typically county. And
yeah, that's true. We have counties, but there are multiple different versions of counties depending on what you're going to do with them, which is quite complicated, administrative and postal and so on. So yeah, it's different. Addresses are complex.
Right. So, I mean, a lot of that complexity is handled by the syndicated data providers who kind of normalize it and provide it to us. But when you look at other markets, like in France, you have province, but in reality, what's really used is departments or département. Which is equivalent of their county, I believe. Italy has regions, Spain has regions, Brazil has states. So regardless of which entity is really used, our data model made it such that the match rules had a consistent way of looking up addresses, right? So I think that was a key winner for us, key guiding principle. And to the favorite part of this question about resistance, yes, we receive a lot of resistance, and we continue to receive resistance even when we are now that we are live. Initially, it was mainly the established markets who are already had sophisticated solutions in place. So when you're rolling out a blank slate, which to me is it's a level playing field. Initially, the established markets do have their solutions are superior. They have more functionality, but over a period of time, as we improved the global solution, the reluctance died down. They were keen on coming on to the main product, the global MDM. But for emerging markets who never had anything, they always were excited. You could always sense the excitement and them coming on board. But this resistance still will continue because as we onboard solutions there's always misalignment on what kind of rules should be adopted. We still hear statements like, hey, for Spain, for our data, this is the business rule that we want. I don't care what you do with other markets. So that's some of the feedback that we tend to get, and we have to politely point out that this is a global solution and standardization is key. There's also the country-specific requirements, right? So markets trying to bring, saying, hey, we need these additional requirements. We had them in our legacy. And so that's a constant battle, but we have been able to control some of this scope creep coming in. So that speaks to the resistance we faced.
Thank you. And just almost a clarification for some people who may be new to Semarchy XDM. Danny is talking about this idea of a core model, and in Semarchy XDM, what we refer to as a model is actually the complete configuration of a Semarchy XDM instance. So it does include the data model, so defining the scope and the entities and attributes, the tables and columns of the stuff you want to manage within Semarchy XDM. But it includes everything else, including the match rules, the survivorship rules, the enrichment, the validations, the data quality controls, the workflows for authoring, the UI experience. That is all included in this thing called the model. So, there might be tiny changes from one market to the other, but they're probably, Danny, I'm guessing, in little changes to data model, maybe the rules, maybe the UI, but like you say, that 95:5 ratio is adjusting this complete model. And that's what we mean by a model in Semarchy XDM. And the other thing which you mentioned, which I think is lovely, you talk about a minimal viable product. From my point of view, I often recommend to customers that, we should adopt like a crawl, walk, run approach to XDM. So learn it, introduce it into a small area, and then build upon that. And that's exactly what you did with your first market. You learned some feedback from that and you developed it. So that's great to hear.
Right. And you touched upon an important point, right? In Semarchy, what really aided a global rollout in a short time span is the reusability of components, all right? So what was built was reused behind the scene on a single instance. So I'm sure we'll get to the architecture slide in a bit, but we have a single instance. we have the single instance MDM, which caters to the 35, 40 markets. But each of these markets get the feel, and I think we have a demo too where you can see some of the screens, the look and feel is as if they have a dedicated instance, okay, and that we do using some of the access management controls in Semarchy, where you set rights to say, hey, this particular user, you see your country's data and nothing else. We don't have the complexity of regions or clusters as yet. So you see your country's data, or you see global, which is what we see.
Yeah. So, you mentioned the architecture. I mean, you provide me with this slide of your architecture. I don't know if you or Matthew or someone wants to just walk through very quickly how you actually architected XDM.
Yeah, so as you can see, a quick thing on the center of this diagram, you are in the Semarchy XDM layer there right in the center. You are seeing multiple MDMs, and that was because we still have some of those legacy, the established markets on their standalone MDMs, right? And along with that sits the global MDM, which caters to the 35, 40 countries, 50 at the end of this year. So these coexist. We haven't folded them in, but that's something that's planned for the future. Now, going from the left to the right of the screen, the data ingestion part, we have two different types of ingestion engines. One is a file-based one, and of course the API. We still have some file-based sources, but API is the way to go. We use a lot of the AWS components, the S3 buckets, the Lambda functions, and if Sabi was here, he could have gotten into some of the specific details around it. The first thing that we do after getting data into our staging area is we standardize it in an RDS database. I think it's Oracle, where we have that core model implemented, the data model, which standardizes data regardless of what your data construct look like in your source. We bring it into a standard structure. There's some data cleansing standardization that's applied using ETL. We are an Informatica shop for ETL. The next step, what you see here in step 3, is where it's actually fed into the MDM engines, right? These are hosted on EC2, and the beauty of the solution is we're able to go in and scale up and scale down based on the needs of the markets, right? The workload especially. So this is where the gold copy generation happens. And in step 4 is where we have a publish layer. Now, I can take credit for any of this has preceded me taking over this. But to me, as being a data architect in my prior life, the beauty of this solution, I feel, is this publish layer, because what we've done here is regardless of which MDM your data sits in, whether it's data for Japan or RU with Russia, which had its own instance, or Great Britain, or the global MDM, it's published into that same layer, right? It's published into that same instance, the consolidation engine there, from where it's then made available using a single API in a JSON form. So to all the downstreams, there's a single API to go, regardless of which market's data, wherever it comes from, it all converges into this consolidation layer. And there, and Sabi and team have done an awesome job on having some kind of messaging solution which publishes the data to our downstreams. We've recently implemented a hot cache and a cold cache hot cache for the frequently changing data. So this has greatly improved the performance of consumption of these downstreams. We have about 30 or 40 different consumers of this data around the world, right? Sorry, we don't have a map here, but if you can imagine a global world map here, you see our consumers from all 4 corners of the world, be it LATAM or Canada up in the Americas, Japan on the right, and Australia and New Zealand. So we've been able to manage providing them good data with good performance, thanks to some of the tuning we've done on the AWS ecosystem.
Thanks, Danny. So coming towards the end of just talking about what you did, the most obvious question, perhaps you can be our agony aunt for today, but what advice would you give to other organizations contemplating, like you have a large global, a large global MDM project?
Yes, I have lots. We have a huge book of lessons learned. Some of we carry a lot of some of the issues we face, so be happy to divulge. I do know that there are other pharma companies looking to embark on something similar, so yes, happy to share any information that we have. I would break it into I'd say 2 different components again. One is architecture, and then the market engagement. How do we deal with the business, right? So when it comes to architecture, I think what most companies should be aware of is there's some drawbacks in this model. It's not all hunky-dory. There's pluses and minuses as with any solution. So we'll start with the drawbacks. When you have a single MDM, you're catering to multiple countries' needs, and so you cannot parallelize your build, because typically in MDM, when you change a match rule or you change some critical foundational piece, you have to reprocess the data, and this is actually behind the scene. It's a single instance, so you have to watch so that you don't step on what other markets are really being worked on. Right. So, and there's a single team. We spoke about an agile development team. The way we are configured in our build team is we have ETL pods, right, for getting multiple ETL pods to get internal data or external data. But when it comes to MDM, you can only have a single team responsible. Otherwise, you end up stepping on each other. And Robin, if your experience is different, if you have some experiences, feel free to chime in. Would be happy to learn from you.
That's a very common experience, and particularly your point about, in any MDM solution, if you say, hey, for this particular area, I need to change the match rules or maybe my data quality rules, you can do that, and subsequent data will be processed with them. But what happens to data that's already processed? Do you reprocess it and maybe change what people have already seen? So that is just I wouldn't even call it a constraint. It's just a feature of the consistency of a solution, and so it is hard, therefore, to customize it because you're removing that consistency.
That's right. So so that's the nature of MDM, and we've had a few abortive attempts at trying to have multiple pods to parallelize that, but invariably we realized, hey, you're always stepping on each other's feet. This is not a viable model. So it's a single. You have Bharat on the call, and he's kind of has this monumental task of making sure things are prioritized, and that's how you do it, right? One of the things to get around some of these, to make this work sequentially is to prioritize and communicate in what order you are actually building. And in an ecosystem like ours, where you have a BI solution, you have a CRM solution, you have a digital marketing solution reliant on you, there is a lot of frustration with the other streams saying, hey, MDM takes too long to turn around requests. But hey, this is the nature of MDM. In other streams, yes, you can have parallel teams working and rolling off things faster. But there is always, with MDM, there's always that feeling that it's a bottleneck. But I think that expectation needs to be set, because a lot of these people, experts in other streams, are not aware how MDM functions and what risks are involved if you try and come up with some simple workarounds. So yeah, the turnaround is longer. That's another drawback. But on the plus side, you have significant lower costs and maintenance, right? And we see the difference firsthand every time we are trying to improve our platform, onboard a new source, because we have a global MDM, which benefits 30, 40 different markets. So if you're onboarding a new source, yes, just that one-time effort, and there's so many beneficiaries from it. Whereas when we are trying to do it with the standalone MDMs for these established markets, it's that same amount of time and effort, but it's only one market that's benefiting from it, right? So it helps to consolidate your MDM. So if other markets are in a similar state where you have individual MDMs and you're going in for a global one, our recommendation would be to consolidate them, so you kind of put all your effort in one place and everybody benefits. Obviously, the maintenance costs too. Your support needs, your operation teams, there's just one MDM to maintain. So I think the cost benefits are significantly high, and we are looking at consolidating our MDMs in the near term. There's also this rush sometimes to stand up region-specific instances to address maybe performance issues or timing issues, which is a temptation that would come in and which we've resisted successfully. I think with today's cloud-based infrastructure, there's ample tuning opportunities using caching. So we've successfully had our single instance based off in Ireland. Of course, there's an instance in Russia for their needs, but we are looking at keeping just the instance in Ireland. And any performance issues have been addressed using cloud-based tuning techniques. So the problem with region-based instances is, hey, if you tend to make an immediate improvement or enhancement in one, and it's hard to keep everything in sync, right? There's additional efforts, and gradually your core model will tend to diverge. And we've always resisted the need to move towards regional instances. Another key learning for us was to have robust release management processes, as I've listed here. One bad experience that we had in our early days, I'd just like to share with everybody is, so as you're working on a global MDM, there was a need for a production fix that needed immediate urgency. And when we attempted to migrate that into production, it inadvertently took along code which was sitting in UAT, which was not tested. And this code, what it started doing was it started doing some uncontrolled merges. Okay. So it started merging data at a phenomenal pace, which I didn't realize Semarchy was capable of. But what it meant was, for CRM and other downstreams, your customers started disappearing because it started doing merges which were unintended. And we had a huge escalation from 3-4 European markets. Luckily, it was contained in 3-4 markets saying, hey, you guys are wiping off our customers. So we then realized that we need to come up with a robust release plan that says, hey, this is what's happening in the development at this point. This is what we are testing, and this is what's going to move into production. So that's key to avoid some of the issues that we've had. The next point here talks about RDM, which is reference data management, which we learned the hard way. It's a foundational piece. When we started our MDM rollout, it was a single source, so all the reference data was consistent, right? It just came from a single source. But then when you are releasing additional sources, you get a variation in your reference data, and we did not have RDM in place to harmonize that. So currently, a lot of our downstreams have multiple versions of reference data, which to us, it's too late. The horses have left the barn. But that's one thing I would advise folks to kind of keep a control on. And of course, minimize customizations based on market requests. There's always this pressure on you to take on some customizations. But over a period of time, that's not viable. It gets unwieldy. If you have a couple of minutes, I just want to talk about the other aspect, which is market engagement. I think expectation setting with the markets, with the local teams is key. To a lot of these global markets who are not aware of MDM and what it entails, we need to clarify that MDM is not magic. It doesn't just provide you all the matches naturally. You were saying something, Robin?
No, I thought it was magic, actually, but there you go. That's just me.
Well, it depends. It depends on the quality of the sources. So I guess in Sanofi, our sources are always suspect. So for folks who think, hey, we're rolling out MDM, we don't have to worry about this. No, it's not the case. There is that need for data stewardship. And most of these folks in the local markets already have day jobs, right? And here we're asking them to take on a huge slew of additional tasks, which they're not prepared for. So key thing is to ensure that expectation is set on what this entails, and also on the governance and policies that the rules are now set on a global level. There's minimal opportunities for local rules, unless you have some local. We do provide local teams the ability to ingest local sources, especially to augment or enhance the customer data. So this is, I think, some of the pitfalls that I would advise to avoid.
I laughed when you said some of our markets had different versions of the same reference data. It's like, isn't reference data meant to be consistent? But yeah, it happens, right? And so one thing which I have suggested for quite a few clients is, reference data management is something you can do in Semarchy XDM. Normally, it is just data that isn't doing the matching and merging. It is just flat data coming from source system that we can bring together and have a single source to maintain it, and then make that available publicly. And for many of our customers, if you just want to get started with Semarchy XDM in a low-risk area, hey, just bring some reference data in. So you don't have to worry about match rules or survivorship, usually, but you do have to do everything else, like configure the model, maybe some enrichment, maybe the UI. It's a great way to get started in a relatively safe way. And then next stage, now bring in the data that this reference data is classifying. Just an observation I've had.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that's something that we learn to appreciate, having dealt with other MDM tools too. That Semarchy with XDM, it provides ability not just for mastering regular master data, but also reference data. Whereas a lot of the other tools have separate modules for reference data and separate processes. But
No, we do it all together. The other thing about reference data, and actually anything in XDM or any master data in general, not just about Semarchy, is it has structures and relationships. So you might have a relationship between an HCO and an HCP, probably. Maybe it's a many-to-many relationship. It probably is. Reference data can be complex, it can be structured, it can be hierarchical, it can have mappings, it can have versioning. So reference data isn't trivial. It's not just a flat code value pair list. It has relationships and structure, and that's all things that we can define in XDM. So nearing the end here, so I have time, we'll do this pretty quickly, Danny, so we can actually have a look at some screenshots or demo. Just where do you see the future of MDM going at Sanofi, and hopefully with Semarchy XDM?
Yes, it is with XDM. So right now we are in the middle of solving that references data problem, that trying to gather those horses back in the barn, if you will. So that's our immediate focus. We're also looking to make our MDM enterprise-wide. Right now, the MDM that we've built satisfies the commercial need, but we do want to reach out into some of the other business units like medical, because they have cases where the same HCPs are participating in our clinical trials, they're participating in our speaker programs, so we do want to build hooks into their data as well. The second bullet that you see here, or the third bullet, is a key one for us. And as I was mentioning, our data stewards are kind of constrained for bandwidth. They're a small team, and we're looking to see how we can have ML and AI assist them in some of the data stewardship activities. Looking at in the other MDM, generally in the MDM market, there are a lot of tools coming up with ML-assisted data stewardship options. So I'm keen on working with you folks, Semarchy, to see how what your roadmap is for ML and AI capabilities. Another one is consolidation, have those country-specific MDMs fold into the global, which will drastically reduce our costs. We're also looking at innovative data, data gathering or data capture. Now that we have data from global syndicated sources, there's a wealth of customer data out there in the public realm, in the public domain. So how can we enhance our data using web scraping or some of the newer innovative data capture? So these are what we have on the roadmap, but really excited about what lies ahead. I believe we have a huge opportunity to add value across the enterprise and drastically lower costs with consolidating MDMs at the same time.
Cool. So perhaps the moment you've been waiting for, I don't know, but I do have an instance of Sanofi's XDM running live, but I have some screenshots here which I think might be quicker to go through. I was going to show you a few of what your development system, what you've configured in the real world for what you're actually trying to do here. And the four things, Danny, that we have are what a user sees when they land in Semarchy XDM, a dashboard showing where they are and what's waiting in the queue for them to actually process as a data steward. What the process might be for a data steward to go through that queue, looking at records that require review. And I specifically put here if, for example, we're matching records together and they match really, really well, there is no need to review them. We can configure a threshold for scoring to automatically create that golden record and mark it as good and confirmed. But the ones where that threshold is less, and that's all configurable, they're the ones that technically we call them suggestions that we want the data stewards to review. And you guys call it, in Sanofi, you call it the match queue.
We call it the match queue, yeah.
Yeah, and so we'll have a quick look at that. So in that match queue, what can a data steward do? He can review that record. How did the records come together to try and create that golden record? And he can drill into a lot more detail and then make a decision about, should I accept this suggested match in the queue or reject it? So I'll show the slides, Danny. Do you want to walk through what we're looking at? I can talk about the first one because it's a dashboard, and then we can go through that.
Sure.
So this is one of the instances at Sanofi, and we have a dashboard here that shows a few interesting things for a data steward when they come into here. The first thing it's saying, oh, these are the loads that actually happened, and I took this slide, a screenshot a few days ago. Here are the batches that processed that came in and brought some data into Semarchy XDM. The latest batch that ran brought in 22,000 master records. And by the way, from a terminology point of view, we call master records what are coming in from the source systems, as opposed to the golden record that comes out the other end. And in that queue that came in that list that came in, in the outstanding match queue that needs to be reviewed, here are the records need to be reviewed by market, by country. And you can see Australia, which is the example we're going to look at right now, only has 61 needing to be reviewed. Italy has fallen behind and has 13,000 waiting for review. That's interesting to know. And some of these other countries have different levels waiting for review. So these are good metrics to understand where you're actually heading in the queue. Yeah, go ahead, Danny.
Just one clarification here. This particular screen has our access rights, right? There's the super user access rights that we shared with our Semarchy folks and our team admins. So you're seeing multiple countries. Just wanted to clarify, when someone from Australia goes in, he gets to see just more details about their country.
Yep, and that's all done by granular security that can limit the data you see to wherever you actually are. And as a quick summary down here, again, for a super user, you can see that, yes, we have 4.2 million golden HCPs generated in this test instance, from 4.5 million source records that come in. So not a really big proportion of consolidation there. Maybe it means all your source data is great, I don't know. Or maybe it's just the test data. But these metrics are readily available for people to see when they come in, and it helps. Again, the guy coming in from Australia can see, oh, I've just got 61 to process today. Easy to do. Whereas a poor guy from Italy, it will probably go, my goodness, I've got 13,000 to look at. And it's test data, right? So not criticizing any particular market there. So that's kind of the dashboard. And by the way, this is all these options here you see when you come into Semarchy XDM. Those are completely configurable, and as Danny says, they will reconfigure automatically based on your security and the marketing that you're into, and they show you what you need to see. And we have Australian data, Philippines data, and other ones, and so on. Anything else to add to that one, Danny?
No, yeah, this is just the landing page where our data stewards kind of wanted to see, what does their day look like today when they come in, how much of activity they have. So that's what you can customize it. Yeah.
So here's the actual queue itself. So, I picked from Australia on the left there, the HTTP match queue. And as we saw from the chart earlier, there are 61 records in this match queue which require a new view. They're just listed there. I can click on any of the columns and resort them and filter them. I could actually look at the scoring that brought them together. They're scrolled over to the right there. I could look through any of these. This is what the match queue looks like. I can select individual ones I want to actually review just by clicking on the icon, or just select all of them, and then I can go through and review all of them. There's not much more to add to that one, Danny, right?
I think, yeah, we have another screen that shows what it looks like, where the manual resolutions are required. Yeah, this one. Yeah, where we picked, I don't know if you have Matthew on the call, but I think he's closer to this market. You there, Matthew?
He's not, I don't see him there.
Okay, I think he had a hard stop. It's late in France, and I think he had to drop. But this is an example of one HCP where we see the different versions of this, if his profile is down at the bottom. And the dotted lines, I believe, are the prospective matching based on which match rule it matches, right? By default, they have their gold copies created, the ones in yellow, and the suggestion is that, hey, these 5 profiles can come together into one, and you can accept or reject based on however the data steward agrees or not. And the actual match rules are shown on the left pane along with the confidence score. I think here the confidence score is 75, which I believe is below our threshold for the auto match in Australia.
Yeah, that's a specific match rule I think I clicked on here. I forget which one, probably one of these green ones here. That's telling you, hey, these 2 records here matched on this rule, and we'd assign that rule an arbitrary score of 75, and then depending on what how those scores aggregate together, we can go ahead and consolidate, or not consolidate them together, but XDM noticed that, hey, these could potentially all come together to a single unified golden record. Do you want to accept that or reject it? And if you accept it, you can also modify it and override some values if you wish. But if this isn't adequate to see or understand what's going on here, we can switch that into a tabular view. Again, on the left here, this is showing that suggested consolidated view. And here are all the source records coming in. You can see from the IDs up here, this came from the OneKey system. This came from CIDF Akamai. This one came from OneKey. And there's more over to the right. You can scroll across. And the shading here, the blue shading says, hey, if you accept this suggestion, these records shaded in blue have the same value as what the consolidated value is going to be. But look here, this last name is not going to be the one survived in the golden record, but these 3 actually are, and so on. So it's a good visual representation in columns for each of the source records for a data steward to understand what will happen if he says accept on this one. Okay. Does that make sense, Danny?
Yeah, absolutely. I just see we just have 4 more minutes left on the call. This went by pretty fast. I'm just wondering if there's any Q&A questions from the audience, if you have something. Yeah.
Well, let's skip through to that. So you can enter, thank you guys for listening, and thank you for completing the poll. You can enter questions in the questions area on the GoToWebinar. And let me see if any have appeared there. Wake up my mouse. If you have any questions, please feel free to, there's a few questions here. So Rochelle asks, some of the examples are all within commercial medical. Have you been successful in enabling this across functions such as R&D, Danny?
Yes, so we are making inroads into R&D as well, but in R&D, it's pretty much the investigators who are working with us throughout our development phase. So we are working with our R&D folks to kind of share their data so we can build hooks and bring that data into MDM. But R&D has not been a system that's been of priority for us. It's mainly the medical where we have, because a lot of times our reps go in to visit an HCP and we realize late that, hey, this person's actually worked with Sanofi on clinical trials for the last 15, 20 years. So we want to avoid those surprises. So it's primarily medical that we are trying to build interfaces into, but R&D is also on our roadmap in the future.
Cool. And Rochelle also asked another question. You say it's a global MDM tool. So how do you incorporate global data, US and ex-US together? And where is it located? Is it located in the EU? And I think you said this is currently hosted in Ireland, right?
This is, yeah, but we don't have we have very little US data because the only US data we have, they have a dedicated MDM, as I was saying. The only US data we have is we cater to what's called as speaker programs, right, where we have experts, scientific experts coming to our speaking engagements and providing symposia and other events. So the only US data we have is speakers from the US MDM that we need to import in here to send out these invites and start up these speaker programs. But they are, yes, so that our instance is hosted in Ireland. With US, there really hasn't been a data privacy issue, except there's new regulations now for basically AMA data, right? The American Medical Association data. You're not allowed to host it outside the US. So we need to make care we don't violate those rules. We look to get that data from other sources like NPPS. So we're not violating AMA rules. So yes, that's how we've gotten around getting US data into our Irish data service.
Thank you, Danny. But that brings us to the top of the hour, 10 o'clock Pacific, 1 o'clock Eastern. So that was perfectly timed. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Danny, for all the work you put into preparing this presentation and the rest of your team who helped us put it together. I enjoyed learning about it. And thank you for all you who attended. I think, Sam, this recording is going to be made available, I think, if anyone wants to look at it later. But I appreciate you joining Danny and I today to understand how Sanofi really got a global customer 360 working around the world in multiple, up to 50 markets now. Thank you very much, Danny, and have a good day, everybody. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you much. Bye.
So there you have it. Another solution in our spotlight. We want to thank Semarchy and Sanofi for that presentation, and we appreciate your attendance as well. Until next time, I'm Doug Atkinson here at Solutions Review. Thanks for watching.